Hello, I'm Tracy.
I'm April, and this is Killer Spirits. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to episode 3.
Oh my gosh, episode 3.
I can't believe we made it to episode 3.
I know. We've moved forward. We've done this.
We're like 21 days create a habit.
Oh yeah.
Now it's our...
It does feel habitual to me now.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, Sunday's our podcast day.
Sunday's our new
Don't
our
even
new
come
day.
over. Sunday's podcast day.
I know. It's on the calendar for life.
Yeah. I agree.
I love it. I'm so excited to be here for episode 3.
I'm really excited for the drink this week.
I am really excited too. We have a really special drink for you today. I have not tasted it yet, but I did sniff it, and I will tell you it smells like fall.
So in honor of the holidays, but also as it relates to this particular story, the Butterbox babies, I have created a Hot Butterbox Rum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a play on the traditional hot buttered rum. Have you ever had that before?
I probably have, but it's not something that I've had often.
So if you follow the traditional hot buttered rum recipe, it is very strong.
Okay.
It's not like very spicy, but it calls for 2 shots of dark rum,
Dang.
basically mixed with water, and it is spicy as fuck. Like Eric and I tried it. I was like, whoo, I felt like this drink is going to light on fire.
Oh, wow.
So
That's because people want to get lit at Christmas.
I guess so. So I'll talk a little bit about why I picked Hot Butterbox Rum.
Okay.
And how it relates to this story.
Do it.
So the story that we're going to talk about takes place in Nova Scotia. And rum was significant to Nova Scotia because of the pirate activity.
Oh.
There's a lot of pirate activity in old-timey Nova Scotia.
Who knew?
Because they're like, they have ocean on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
So the pirates would come to town and like hang out in the city. And they brought rum with them.
Mm-hmm.
So rum Nova Scotia identifies with rum drinking.
Oh, okay.
And also there's maple syrup in the drink because Nova Scotia is Canadian, eh?
Oh, yeah.
And there's actually a lot of maple syrup in it. You know,
It looks
you got to.
beautiful.
So while I'm going through the recipe, do you want to take a drink?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the hot buttered rum is sort of made like a bulletproof coffee or bulletproof tea, where the fat is emulsified into the liquid because obviously water doesn't have any fat. So the butter has to. What happened?
I took a drink and then I think I didn't realize there's foam on the top.
Oh, yeah.
And so I like sucked it in, and then I didn't realize that I had like sucked in a huge amount of the drink, and then I was like, whoop. So I will take a second drink with less aggressiveness.
Okay. Yeah. Slow it down a little
Please
bit.
continue.
So to emulsify the butter into the drink, you have to blend it. And I used a Nutrimix.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
NutriBullet.
Yeah.
That thing. So the recipe goes an ounce of dark rum, an ounce of amaretto, which took the heat off the rum.
So you kind of cut the rum in half?
Cut the rum in half.
Okay.
Switched it out with amaretto because it's nice and sweet. It has that almond flavor.
It really does.
1 tablespoon of the butter batter that I'm going to talk about. A half an ounce of maple syrup.
Butter batter.
A half an ounce of maple syrup. 5 ounces of hot water. Probably like a pinch and a half of salt, which sounds weird and the recipe doesn't call for it, but it makes it so much better.
Interesting.
It's not like a salted caramel flavor. It just gives it that like a little bit of something.
Yeah.
And the butter that's in it's also salted butter.
Okay.
I'll go through that. On top is maple whipped cream, which is a half a cup of heavy whipping cream and 1 full ounce of maple syrup.
Wow.
It's so good.
It's divine.
Dude, it's so good. And then the butter batter is 1 stick of salted Kerrygold butter because it's the best.
Kerrygold is the best.
Regular butter just doesn't taste.
Yeah. I do like me some challenge butter, though.
That grass-fed butter just has like a flavor that...
True.
Yeah. So you soften the stick of butter. You add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, a teaspoon of allspice, a tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract.
So fall.
And then you like mush it all together. And you can keep it in the fridge for a while, like as long as you keep your butter in there. And then you can just dole out a tablespoon for your...
Dude, you could use that on toast,
Hot Butterbox
too.
Rum.
Be so
and then
good.
the garnish on top of the whipped cream and the foam is a cinnamon stick, an anise pod, and fresh grated nutmeg.
Oh, it's so pretty.
It is very pretty.
All right, so I did take a drink, and it is so good. I feel like this would be great, well, especially in fall, but in lieu of hot chocolate. It's
almost like the nutmeg gives it like an eggnog.
Yes, and I could taste the almond, so it's almost like marzipan a little bit.
Oh man, I just got chills.
It's
good.
Really good. So you have this beautiful maple whipped cream on the top that's really silky, and then you have a little bit of foam because when you blended it up, it got real foamy, and it is really delicious. And it's still warm too.
And it's buttery.
It's buttery.
Like I can taste the richness of the butter and the foam.
Butter batter.
Oh man. And when I was coming up with this drink, I was looking up, like, usually I don't go that far into what the true crime part of it because I'm focused on the drink part of it.
Right.
So I do like a brief overview of what we're talking about, try to find places, you know, time periods, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it almost felt like wrong to be doing such a festive drink for such a horrific story.
Yes.
But then I was kind of like, I guess I can't really be too worried about that.
I see what you're saying.
I can't make a sad drink for every...
What would be a sad drink?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe you'll be drinking this and you feel sad.
Yeah.
That's all you could do. Because I don't even know what the definition of a sad drink would be.
I mean, I'm honoring Nova Scotia with this for sure.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, you know, Canadians are fantastic, amazing people. And I have not been to Canada. And that is next on my list of where I want to go.
Let's do it.
I mean, it's humongous. There's so many places to go to, but I've heard that Nova Scotia is a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm. And I heard that they have really like down to earth people, like working class people. Mm-hmm. So it's not all just fancy rich people.
Also, our very favorite chef in the world happens to live in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Not that Chuck would ever listen to
visit you in Canada.
Hi. Can we? What?
Actually, we had. I looked at our stats for last week. We had 2 more people from France.
Really?
Yes.
Hi, France.
I don't know why we're on the French.
I don't know, but if you're from France and you're listening to this, hell fucking low. We're so excited you're listening.
This is an homage.
Yeah.
To your Canadian
and what was
sisters.
Chuck's restaurant called? I forget. Something Manger.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. But anyway, he used to be on Cooking Channel, and he is amazing. That's
such a cutie.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't watched Chuck in a while. I feel like for some reason, fall is the time to turn on like Cooking Channel and watch all the cooking shows and just kind of have it on in the background, which I love. And, you know, not that I cook at all, but I do have to. Can I just shout myself out for a second? Last night I made a vegan pasta because we had a vegan friend over.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was so proud of myself. I'd never actually made it. And it was actually easier than I thought because you use soaked cashews and for like the cream in the sauce.
Wow, you like really
I
really
did it.
made it.
I did it, girl.
Good for you.
Yeah, and it actually turned out amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I also realized that you can eat peanut butter whilst vegan, so I feel like I could definitely be vegan. I never thought this through before, but I think it's a
potato chips are vegan. I could get down with that.
Yeah. So anyway,
wow.
It's a noble diet. That's all I'm gonna say. And it was fun to make. So
cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
When you text me and told me that you made vegan pasta, I thought you said Vegas. I read it as Vegas pasta, and I was excited that you were talking about Vegas, and I was like, oh, that's a little bit less exciting.
Vegas pasta and
I don't know.
sad
I just
drink.
saw vegan, and I thought you said Vegas and a sad drink. A sad drink is like bourbon on the rocks.
No, it's true. I could see that.
You know?
But that's boring.
I know. It's just the subject matter is hard.
The subject matter is hard today.
And I don't want people to think that I'm like mocking the tragedy.
No, not at all.
With a festive beverage.
Right. No.
I want you guys to know that that's not our intention.
Not at all. Not at all. But you can definitely make this drink, listen to this podcast, and be sad as fuck when you listen to it. We're okay with that. Yeah, it actually is kind of a heavy subject, but we'll go into it, and, you know, we're all in this together. But I also think it's an important subject, the history of it. Just, you know, as we talk about it, you know, you'll kind of feel what I'm talking about when I say that. Gotcha. So do you want to get started?
Let's get started.
Okay. I always have to take my glasses off because I can't see close up with my glasses, but I can't see far away without it's just a mess. I'm getting so old.
Can you make the font bigger?
Can I make the fog better?
The font bigger.
Oh, I tried that, but then I had like 300 pages. So I was like, okay,
I'm running out of paper here, guys.
What do I need to do now? Okay, so today, before we get started, let me talk about my sources. The Canadian Children's Rights Council actually has a great website that I looked at, Murderpedia. There is a website called Wicked We, which was really good.
I never even
perused it. Yeah. And there's a book called Cold North Killers, Canadian Serial Murder. Yeah, it was really good. And then there's also this really in-depth article by Karen Balcom from McMaster University called Scandal and Social Policy, the Ideal Maternity Home and the Evolution of Social Policy in Nova Scotia, 1940 to 51. So if you really want to know about social policy,
deep dive.
It's a real deep dive. So, but hey, I recommend it. So today we're going to talk about the tragic story of the Butterbox babies. And to begin this story, we first need to talk about William and Lila Young. Oh, the couple, William and Lila.
That's funny. I read her name Lila.
Lila?
I don't know. Lila.
I don't know.
Such a beautiful name for such a not beautiful person.
Correct. So Lila Gladys Young, born Lila Coulin, was born in Fox Point, Nova Scotia in 1899 into a large family of fishermen. Her parents, Salem and Bessie Coulin, which I never heard the name Salem for somebody, but
for a person.
I kind of dig it.
The cat in Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Named Salem.
Yep.
You're right. Oh, man.
Who was also a guy, to be fair.
That's a great cat name, though.
Because he was like a guy that turned into a cat.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like Hocus Pocus.
Right.
Except he was Binks, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah. All right. So we have all our cat names planned out for the next 25 years.
Salem, Binks.
I like it.
Yeah.
Though I'm only allowed to have one cat. I just want everyone to know. I've rallied for myself. It has not happened. Oh. I know.
Who needs a friend?
Yeah, I agree. So her parents, Salem and Bessie Coulin, were devout Seventh-day Adventists, and Lila was one of 8 sons and 3 daughters, so they had a lot of kids. Lila dreamed of becoming a teacher, and after finishing school, she taught school in her hometown of Fox Point. So I actually did not find a lot or hardly anything about her childhood, though I did read a few things that she was obstinate. So I guess she was stubborn. But really, there was really no actual stories that I could find about her childhood.
Is that like a good way of saying she was a biatch?
Possibly. Yeah.
The appropriate way to say that.
Yeah. So at the age of 26, she met William Peach Young. What a name. William was born in Oregon on the 11th of January, 1898. And in adulthood, he left Oregon and moved to Memramcook, New Brunswick, which is about 3 hours from Fox Point. So not far from where she was. William followed in the footsteps of his father into the Seventh-day Adventist Church and aspired to be an Adventist medical missionary. And after they married, Lila quickly became pregnant with the first of 5 children. And there's literally nothing to be found about these children. They probably don't want to be found, but...
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Which is fine. I mean, I'm not here to talk about their children. I'm sure they're fabulous people.
Can't help who you're related to.
No. So Lila's pregnancy was difficult and she had excruciating chronic back pain, which I got to kind of feel for her on that front. And William's interest in alternative medicine began around this time because of her experience with that. In 1927, after the birth of their first child, they moved to Chicago, where William decided to become a licensed chiropractor. And chiropractic care was actually still a new discipline at this time, as the first state law licensing chiropractors had passed in 1913, which was only 14 years earlier. But it was quickly growing in popularity in the U.S. and Canada. In 1928, Lila was 29 and a recent graduate of the National School of Obstetrics and Midwifery. And William was 30, and he was a chiropractor and also continued as an unordained Seventh-day Adventist minister and missionary. So he was never ordained. And then I got really spun out, look at a lot of stuff about what that means, being ordained or unordained. And there's a lot of differing views on that. A lot of ministers will not be ordained until they've actually been in a church for a while. So I don't know if it's not really like a strike against you necessarily.
Gotcha.
You know, at
Just
least
time.
Yeah. You know, because when I first read, I was like, "Oh, he was unordained. Okay,
Like he was
whatever,
cheating
Willie."
it.
But then I more read on it. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, it's not, you know,
That abnormal.
yeah." So they relocated to East Chester, Nova Scotia, and decided to open the Life and Health Sanitarium. So, what do you think of when you think sanitarium?
Custodial work.
Custodial work.
I don't know. Sanitizing.
That's amazing.
Is that not it? Of course, it's not it, but
Well, maybe they needed to sanitize more.
I don't know
That's
what a sanitarium is.
Okay, a sanitarium is a medical facility for long-term illness, most typically associated with the treatment of tuberculosis in the late 19th and early 20th century, before the discovery of antibiotics.
Tuberculosis was a big deal.
It was.
That's
And,
scary.
yeah, so this was 1928, but antibiotics were not widely available to the general public until about the 1940s, which is not that long ago.
No.
If we think about it.
1940s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's something I would never really think about, but
No. In the 1940s, people were not that long ago. My dad was born in the 1940s. So, yeah, I mean, it's
my grandma was
a generation ago.
My grandma was like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, this is where people would go to convalesce,
Oh, okay.
which sounds like a noble thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd think. When they first started this operation, they barely had the money to supply enough cots for their patients in the small cottage they bought in East Chester, Nova Scotia. So this was basically just a house they bought, and they threw some people in it and called it a sanitarium.
Okay.
Because to me, it didn't sound like this was something they needed to be licensed for.
Which is bizarre.
It's bizarre, but it was also 1928. So
They're just like,
it's like
well,
the
I
Wild
guess
West out there in the 20s.
I guess. Yeah, that's true.
It kind of was.
Different people.
Yeah. So within a year, the Youngs decided to put Lila's midwifery to use and rename their sanitarium to the Ideal Maternity Home, which was far from ideal.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. So Lila also thought it would be a great idea to advertise herself as an obstetrician, which she absolutely was not. The home started as a place for local married couples to have their babies and a discreet place for unwed mothers to go for privacy and care. The Youngs soon became known as the Baby Barons of East Chester.
So there were legitimate couples going to have children there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they were using it as like a hospital, sort of.
Yeah, because hospitals were few and far between. And also it was located kind of on the outskirts. It was kind of in the boons,
Gotcha.
basically.
And so, interesting.
That's all? You know,
I'm
question?
no, I was just thinking, so she's not technically an OB. Was she just a midwife?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, she was not a doctor.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So they were known as the Baby Barons of East Chester, and the home was known as a place that cared for, quote, girls in trouble. Yeah. So they actually asked the church at one point to sanction the home, but they were denied because the home was viewed as a for-profit entity, not a charitable one. And trust me, they make profit. Lots and lots of profit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like I said the home was actually in an isolated part of East Chester near the coast of Nova Scotia. And because of that, it drew little notice from government officials.
Right.
It was just kind of out of the way, and it kind of served a purpose that everyone light at the time.
So nobody was ratting it out because
No.
people needed it.
No.
Because there was nowhere else to go.
Right. Unless we forget, 1929 was right at the onset of the Great Depression. And the Youngs benefited from being in the right place at the right time for many reasons. So Canada, like many other parts of the world, like here in the U.S., was severely affected by the Great Depression. Millions of Canadians were left unemployed, hungry, and many were homeless. The decade became known as the Dirty 30s, even though I always hear people say that now when they fucking turn 30, and I hate it. Can I just say that? I'm sorry if you turned 30 and called yourself the Dirty 30s. I don't like it. I don't mean to offend any 30-year-olds out there, but no one did that when I turned 30, and all of a sudden it's like the Dirty 30 now. Why is it dirty, April? You're not 30 yet.
Next year.
So maybe once you turn 30, you'll know.
Oh, then I'll know.
You'll suddenly know.
I'll be like, oh, I understand why it's dirty.
This is why it's dirty.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But anyway, when you guys are saying that about your 30th birthday, I would like you to remember that that is what it was called in the Depression in Canada.
Oh.
So, yeah. So it was called that due to a crippling drought in the prairies, as well as Canada's dependence on raw materials and farm exports.
Oh, like the Dust Bowl, kind of.
Yep. So widespread losses of jobs and savings really transformed the country at that time. So the Youngs needed money. and they're going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would seem like no one would have money though.
Nobody did. Well, I mean, some people did. Rich people.
Right.
Yeah. So the Depression also triggered the birth of social welfare and the rise of populist political movements. So to say that life was rough is kind of an understatement. It was a bad time. Also at the time, the Youngs were running this maternity home. Abortion and birth control were illegal. Very illegal. Yes. So there was not a lot of options for women at the time. Mm-hmm. Most unmarried women who got pregnant were disowned by their families.
Of course.
There was zero government support for unwed mothers, and there definitely was no community support.
Right.
You were ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
And for women who chose to have and keep their babies, I mean, there's no community assistance.
Yeah, good luck.
You're not getting help from your family.
Yeah, good luck going to work while you have a baby.
And there's no jobs. It's
and there's
the freaking
no jobs,
Depression.
and there's no one to help you.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible
And your family
time.
won't even talk to you.
Correct. Yeah. So it would actually be another 20 years before the Nova Scotia government recognized the need for social programs for unmarried mothers. So there was literally nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think about. So the Youngs really sold the ultimate desire at that time, which was secrecy.
Oh.
Yes. Privacy and discretion were guaranteed.
Yeah. Discreet.
Yeah, they were very discreet. So for unwed mothers, they offered a package deal. Room and board, meals, and adoption services. You know, because you save when you bundle, right?
Oh my God.
It's true.
They were the ultimate.
They were the first bundlers. So payment on arrival was actually a condition. Between $100 and $500 for room and board, delivery, and the adoption of the baby.
That's so much.
It's a shit ton of money back then. It was an additional $12 for layette, which is like clothing and baby accessories. Mm-hmm. And they also ran a babysitting service for $2 per week. And I read that like neighbors would babysit babies. Is very interesting.
Yeah, I saw a picture of a bunch of people sitting on a lawn with like a ton of babies.
Yeah.
Like 15 babies.
Oh yeah. There was way more than that. So burial fees of $20 were also charged to cover the cost of the burial of babies that died while they were there. The $20 included $5 toward a shroud and $15 for the Youngs who would be present at the burial. How noble of them.
What?
How nice. You're going to pay people to show up to the funeral. Like, what the hell?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask later.
Okay. You can ask me anytime. You are literally making money from the deaths of babies, which most of the deaths were you're doing. Just
okay,
wrap
that's
your
what
head
I was
around
going to
that.
ask. Like, were they, because, you know, the infant mortality rate back then was probably.
I'm sure that there was definitely some
It was
babies
bad.
who, it was just an accident or thing, but
And like the mothers died a lot too.
yes, but
But these were not that.
no,
That was not the issue.
no. And I'll talk a little bit about their mortality rate
Okay.
compared to the actual
Oh, okay.
national mortality rate at the time. And you can see. So the burial fee included a white pine, quote unquote, coffin. And Lila described them as lovely butter boxes that were mitered and very, very smooth and always lined with satin. Yeah. So that was what they would bury the babies in, the butter boxes. Yeah. Which basically were like grocery boxes. They didn't
Like
just
crates.
have butters in it. Butters. They didn't just have butter in it, but they had groceries. Usually dairy products would come in these boxes. And they just looked like wooden crates that you would see now. You know,
Like
lot of
apple
people,
boxes or something.
yeah, a lot of people have them in their homes even, you know, as shadow boxes or put stuff in. You even have one.
I do.
Yeah.
I have several.
You basically have a baby coffin in your house. I just want you to know.
It's filled with Christmas decorations.
Oh, well, that's good. All right. So elaborate contracts were signed by the unwed mothers, giving William the power of attorney and legal authority over their babies and their adoptions. So they basically just signed over.
So the other thing that's interesting to me is like, we couldn't get, you know, there's no licensing. There's no, I mean, everything's so unlegit. Why? What is even the point?
It's needed at the time.
I guess.
You
Like,
know,
who's hiring a lawyer?
no, yeah, nobody has money to do that.
Are the courts even open?
Probably, but not for this kind of stuff. No.
If they can't even get a government official to come out and look at the place.
No. And I mean, the women who are going there don't have money.
Right.
They're destitute. Like they, you know, their
It just
families
seems like
have put them out.
redundant to have them sign a contract.
Right.
Like,
But a lot of
why?
married women also did go there to have their
Well, I
babies.
guess that's true.
And they did have the money to do that. But we'll talk a little bit about that too.
Okay.
So if they did not sign that contract within 14 days of the birth, they were charged an additional $30. So by the time women were ready to leave, their bills often exceeded between $300 to $500.
That's probably so much money back then.
It is okay. Well, at the time, the average wage in the area was about $8 a week.
Dang.
So think about that. $8
Yeah.
a week. And that's average.
That would take you, I mean, shit, that would take you a long time to pay that off.
Yeah.
If you were giving 100% of your wages to the...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the Youngs are really nice. Okay. I want you to know. And they provided an opportunity for the women to work off their debt. So they were forced to work at the home for up to 18 months to pay off their bill.
So slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this also provided them basically a steady stream of free labor.
Right.
That they didn't have to pay
Yeah.
for. And just think about how you would have felt. Either your baby has been given up for adoption, you have nowhere to go. I mean,
And then you have to stay there and work for these people.
yeah, and whether you decide to give your baby up for adoption or not, that's a loss. You're grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were forced into this. And I also read that sometimes they would make them pose as nurses too later on.
Oh, like lie?
Yeah, because then we see that the government does get involved. And so that was kind of like their sham. Like, okay, pose as a nurse. Like, okay, have you people never thought of checking credentials?
No kidding.
I mean, I don't know what those look like back then, but come on now. That's kind of crazy.
I think back then it was like you could just move to a new town and be a new person, though.
Yeah, it's
Like
a little
there was
harder
no-
nowadays.
Yeah, there was no tracking or whatever.
I can move to a new town, but my Instagram profile still follows me. There's no escaping myself.
You could start a new Instagram profile.
That's true.
You could just be like,
I don't even have to move to do that.
that's true. You could be a whole new person online if you want.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So a newspaper ad that Lila composed to lure women to the home read, quote, "Dame Gossip has sent many young lives to perdition after ruining them socially that might have been bright stars in society and a power in the world of usefulness had they been shielded from gossip when they made a mistake," unquote.
Oh.
So they were actually, putting ads in the paper.
That's like putting it right out there, too.
Come to us.
It's like if you don't want people to talk shit, just don't worry about it.
Right. But I mean,
take you
if
in.
you were a woman who recently found out she was pregnant, you had 0 places to go and you read that, what would you do?
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, this might actually be my saving grace.
Right. At least no one will find out.
Right. Like,
No
okay.
matter what happens to me, at least no one.
And
yeah.
they sound not judgmental,
Right.
you know.
They're religious.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a good thing.
He's like a minister.
Yeah.
So you would think like, you
Yeah.
know, they're probably on the up and up.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I read that sometimes when they were delivering babies, he would just like drop to his knees and pray or something. It's like, you're not being helpful.
Dude.
You're not being helpful,
Yeah.
dude. Be useful.
Well, that's all he knows how to do because
Well,
he's not a doctor.
correct.
Yeah.
I guess he
is
could
the
align their
problem.
back, but I don't know. He was a
what?
chiropractor.
Oh.
He could align their back.
Yeah. Give him an adjustment.
I mean, pregnant women do need adjustments. All right.
So do babies.
That's right. I have read that, which sounds frightening, but it's true.
I've seen videos of chiropractors doing it and they look like they like it.
They probably do like it. Yeah. Okay. So during World War II, business was also booming because nearby Halifax, it was a major port town that served as the point of departure for convoys crossing the North Atlantic to England.
That's the pirates.
Well,
That's where the pirates were.
yes, but these were sailors.
Right.
And the sailors and merchant seamen would squeeze as much fun into their days in port as they could. And you know what that means?
Ladies.
Love them and leave them.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. So many women were left as unmarried and some, of course, even widowed and as expectant mothers. So
Aw.
yeah, that's really hard. So the Ideal Maternity Home pretty much offered the only place that could provide for these women and their children, which is really sad because your only choices at the time was either destitution or the literal hell called the Ideal Maternity Home.
Oh.
How sad is that?
Yeah.
That's not even really a choice. So Nova Scotia coast also drew vacationers from New York and New Jersey, and many of whom were childless Jewish couples frustrated by the long waits for Jewish infant adoptions back home. And in truth, many babies did find good homes
Well, that's
from
good.
this place. Yeah.
That's
and
positive news.
There's a lot of stories about people who went on and they had beautiful adoptive parents. So I have nothing bad to say about that. But they were not all legal.
Right.
So the Youngs were very willing to disregard the unbreakable rule of that era that was followed by American and Canadian adoption agencies that children must be placed with a family of the same religious background.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? So if you were a Jewish couple, you would have to wait for a Jewish baby. So it's slim pickings,
Right.
you know?
They don't come around very often.
Right. So you could be waiting for a long time.
And there's plenty of babies out there that need to be adopted.
Right. During this period, the laws in the U.S. forbid adoption across religious backgrounds, so there was a deep shortage of babies available for Jewish couples to adopt. The maternity home provided people basically black market adoptions.
Wow.
Yeah. The Youngs advertised extensively in American and Canadian newspapers, offering, quote, lovely babies for adoption, excellent health background, and healthy bodies, unquote. Yeah. Word of mouth also helped their business, and by the early 1940s, the Youngs had an extensive clientele in both the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, if you're a couple that comes home with a baby and you've been waiting for an adoption for a long time, other people are going to ask,
Oh, yeah.
like, how did you?
Where are you adopting this baby?
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of the babies adopted out ended up in Jewish homes in New Jersey, and it is believed that some Jewish parents were told that there were Jewish babies at the home, which was actually highly unlikely. Or they knew they were not getting non-Jewish babies, but they were either comfortable enough or desperate enough to not care.
Right.
Yeah. So the Youngs realized pretty quickly that there was a market to serve, and this was something no one wanted to talk about during that time. Even though infant adoption was on the rise during this time, many parents did not want to reveal the baby's origins to neighbors or friends, and a lot of times even to the child themselves as they grew.
That's sad.
It is, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people grew up not knowing they were adopted at all. The Youngs promised never to reveal information about the adopted babies, and sometimes they even offered cover stories to adopted parents. Yeah.
Just like,
And I don't know what those
make it
stories
up.
were, but yeah,
Interesting.
it's very interesting. So babies were sold for between $1,000 and $10,000 each.
How do you decide what's a $1,000 baby and a $10,000?
I don't know.
Baby? Just like how
I guess
rich
the Youngs
people
decided.
are. Just how rich the people are that are buying it.
Probably. So just an estimate, but $10,000 is about $200,000 nowadays. It's a lot.
Holy crap!
It's a lot of money.
How much is it to adopt kids now?
I
Is it like
have
40
no
or
idea.
50 grand?
I don't know. I guess
it's
it
a
probably
lot.
depends on where.
And if you don't do it through foster care,
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it through foster care, it's technically free.
right?
But
Well, technically they pay you to do the foster care, but
Right. But you don't know if you'll get to keep that child because, the
Right.
goal is reunification. So a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure, but it's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
That's black market babies.
Yeah.
Also, they pretty much demanded and expected that people give donations. So you could be paying that much money and then you also are paying more money.
Oh. Because they're like a air quotes nonprofit or something?
Apparently.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even allowing for quote unquote rejected babies and those who died, it is reasonable to estimate that half the babies, which would be about 700 or so, were sold for an average of about $5,000. That is a total of $3.5 million.
Holy cannoli.
They were making bank.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Couples seeking to adopt would choose their infant from rows and rows of bassinets. So you would just like walk in and it would just kind of be like going to the grocery store.
That's so weird.
Like, wow, just choose your baby, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. At one point in their business, could be up to 100 babies available at one time.
Wow. How do they take care of so many babies?
Neighbors. And also we'll learn they didn't really take care of all the babies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So twins were sometimes separated or arbitrarily matched depending on what people wanted. So
they're just like, oh yeah, they're twins.
I like this baby and I like this baby. Boop, twins.
Wow.
Yeah. Or there is a set of twins and they're just separated and they'll never know, which is just heartbreaking.
That's sad.
It's very sad. It is believed that the couples adopting these babies had no idea that this place was so bad.
Right.
I mean, maybe some did, but it's my belief that most probably did not.
No, I mean, if you go to a place that just has a bunch of babies, you're like,
Right.
Okay.
And
this is weird, but
I want a baby.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they preyed on people's most personal pain.
Right.
Like the desire to have a baby is so strong. And it is a deep pain when you're not able to do that or have a baby. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, really, they victimized everyone involved here. So for babies considered unmarketable, a much worse fate awaited them. Unadoptable, according to the Youngs, were babies of any ethnicity other than white, babies who were sick, weak, or had any visible defects or disabilities. A birthmark was sometimes enough to disqualify a baby from their market.
Wow.
A birthmark.
Because that could be like a demon or something.
Who the fuck knows?
That's weird.
But it's not a pretty baby.
Yeah.
Automatically disqualified were many babies whose mothers came from the nearby cities of Halifax and Dartmouth, which had significant black populations, which is just crazy.
That's sad.
Yeah. So they were automatically disqualified.
You definitely can't pass it off as a Jewish baby.
Well, correct. So these poor sweet babies were fed molasses and water until they starved to death.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It is estimated that between 400 to 600 babies were deliberately killed by starvation or were refused medical care because they were what the Youngs would consider unmarketable.
Oh.
And I just want you to think about this. It can take 2 weeks to starve to death. That's 14 days.
That's a long time.
That's 336 hours. That's an unimaginable amount of time to suffer. And that's what they did.
Well, and also to just be able to ignore that for so many babies.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that you could just stand by and watch that. And I mean, they've done studies on babies where, babies cry and then they get attention and then they cry and they get attention. But when they have zero attention, they actually just stop crying. They make no sounds.
Oh.
They're hopeless. It's really sad. Like a lot of babies in certain adoption places or like orphanages, back in the day. And they would just leave them because they couldn't handle all these children or nobody cared. And the babies just stopped crying. They're just silent. And that is so eerie to me.
That's weird.
It's so heartbreaking. So for some reason, when I read that, I just imagined, just this silent place, these hopeless babies. It just, So yeah, that's why they're evil incarnate. So in 1933, Dr. Frank Roy Davis was appointed to the Office of Public Health. He'd heard rumors about baby deaths in the home, so he took it upon himself to keep an eye on the home. He was like, okay, I actually see you out there.
Yeah.
Trying to do your biz.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see what's going on. So the Youngs actually ended up hiring an actual RN due to the spotlight that Dr. Davis started to shine on them. But I don't really think that did any good, honestly. I mean, so you hired an RN, but I don't feel like anything changed.
Right.
Most likely because of Dr. Davis's vigilance, on March 4th, 1936, Lila and William Young were both charged with 2 counts of manslaughter in the deaths of Eva Nyforth and her newborn baby. Eva Nyforth was a young woman who lived in a nearby Seaforth, which was about an hour outside of East Chester. Eva was in her 9th month of pregnancy when she arrived by sleigh to the Ideal Maternity Home. And she arrived by sleigh because it was just over a week before Christmas. So it was probably snowing.
Yeah.
In 1935. She soon contracted an abdominal infection and was confined to a cot until January 28th when she went into labor. And it was a really, really brutal labor, I read. So her baby died shortly after birth, and within a day, her infection had become inflamed and there was no antibiotics on the premises to treat her. So this is 1935. Antibiotics were available, like in hospitals.
Right.
You know,
they were not a hospital because they didn't have any doctors.
Correct. And maybe there was not a lot of antibiotics at that time because they weren't like widely available until the 40s. But I'm assuming that there was probably, if she was in a real hospital, she would have survived.
Well, that's only 5 years before the 40s.
Yeah. So Eva's boyfriend, Walter, actually received a letter from William Young telling him that Eva was not doing well. Like, if you want to see her, you better come see her. So Walter went to the home to see her, and she was near death. I mean, I'm not even sure if she was able to recognize or talk to him. Walter suggested calling a physician in East Chester, but William said, no, dude, I am a doctor. I have everything under control, right? First of all, William, you are not a doctor at all. And second of all, eat shit, because he did nothing,
right,
and he could have saved her.
Yeah.
So while Walter was there, Lila and William actually made him pay the $20 for the burial of the baby.
What?
Yeah. And then they're like, okay, you can leave now. Thanks for coming. I really think that's the only reason they probably wanted them there, to pay the $20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they made a huge mistake because that's what got them caught.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, if there was no third party knowledge, then
that's
maybe
true.
They wouldn't have found out.
Yeah, that's true. So by February 1st, Eva Nyforth also died, and charges of manslaughter were filed against the Youngs for the deaths of Eva and her baby. It was believed they died from a combination of negligence and poor sanitation at the home. So they actually had a trial. And during their trial, provincial pathologist Dr. Ralph Smith testified that he had performed autopsies on both Eva and her baby and suspected Eva had contracted peritonitis from unsterilized obstetrics instruments. Gross. So they just be using dirty stuff.
Gross.
Yeah, it's just horrible. The infection had slowly spread from her uterus to her perineum, causing abscesses that ruptured, resulting in a torturous death. I can't even fathom. And she was already in all this pain and literally gave birth through that pain.
Wow.
That is just awful. So improper use of forceps on her newborn had loosened. Oh, this is really bad. Okay, this is just a little trigger warning for people. I'm talking about baby, okay? Improper use of forceps on her newborn had loosened the scalp and broken off the occipital bone. And if you don't know what that is, it's the bone right in the lower back of your head. The Youngs took the stand to deny the charges, and in May 1936, they were acquitted.
Okay.
Right? That's what I mean. Like, okay, they got caught, but like, whatever.
Apparently nothing happened.
Nothing happened. They were literally acquitted.
Even though there was all this evidence?
Yeah. So it's believed that most local Nova Scotians, including politicians and prominent citizens, supported the home because it served such an important function.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So it's political.
Yep. And they also knew which prominent citizens had used their services and probably lobbied this knowledge into support of their cause.
Oh, that makes
So,
perfect sense.
I mean, if you're killing babies, what's a little blackmail, right?
Yeah.
So they truly believe that's probably what
I'm sure
happened.
some of their like children or relatives or something had used the place.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's
Probably
small.
lots
It's
of them.
small,
Yeah.
you know. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, under Dr. Davis's directions, began investigating every reported death at the home for years after that. The home had a reported mortality rate of 8.1%, which was almost triple the Nova Scotia average of 3.1%.
Wow.
So yeah, it's obviously women died, babies died back then, but they
At that
far
rate.
exceeded that rate.
Yeah.
And these were reported. I mean, what about the ones they didn't I mean, when you say reported deaths,
It's like, whose responsibility is it?
they don't have to report everything. I'm
No.
sure they did not report everything.
No.
So I mean, they could report whatever they want.
I'm wondering, are you at some point, where did they bury all the babies?
In a field.
Just like near their house?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I actually wrote that down, but it was a field, I believe, that was owned by her family.
Oh, so nobody would ever have any reason to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. So within 15 years, Lila and William had expanded from their little cottage, their 4-bedroom operation, to a complex of 54 rooms, 14 bathrooms, and multiple nurseries.
Wow.
Valued at $40,000. And they had no outstanding mortgage, so they paid that.
That's it.
Well,
I know $40,000 was a lot back then.
yeah. Just like, 1940.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of money back then. So clients could actually reserve private or semi-private rooms if they were put off by the thought of sleeping in the common room. Public health officials had been watching the Youngs for a decade, but they found their first concrete evidence of neglect finally in 1945. Investigators reported horrible conditions, and we're talking swarming flies, filthy beddings, and they noticed some infants weighing 50% of their normal weight for their age. And I don't know what those semi-private rooms look like, but that sounds horrific. So I don't know if they had like a crappy area and a nice area. I don't know. But that is terrible. And then Lila was like, whoa, how dare you even think about talking shit about my thriving business? And actually had the audacity to fire back with charges of harassment.
Okay, bro.
Yeah, right?
You need to cool it, Lila.
Lila, relax.
You need to take it down a notch.
Yeah. But thankfully, a new amendment to the Maternity Boarding House Act of 1940, broadening licensing requirements.
Oh.
Hello.
What a novel idea.
What a novel idea.
Regular checks.
Yes. The Youngs actually put in a license application and were rejected.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Probably because it was up to that Department of the Public Health guy.
Yeah, but it still didn't stop them.
What?
It still didn't stop them. And also, they had been operating for 17 years at this point without a license.
That's wild to me.
Think about that.
So a license wasn't required before.
I guess not. Yeah. So they called mothers as part of the defense team witnesses.
Yeah.
And they also revealed a lot of wrongdoing. They actually were pretty vocal, some of them. So one told how her baby died after receiving no medical attention and was buried in a butter box. The same mother also said the Youngs told her to pose as a nurse during a health department inspection.
Nice.
And another witness admitted to lying in adoption records, saying that her baby was Jewish when her baby was not Jewish.
Gotcha.
So, but it was not that simple to close them.
That's so weird.
It's bonkers bananas.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
how did they not just both get arrested and leave the house?
Spoiler alert. I don't think they ever are arrested.
They never get in trouble, do they?
Not really. Mm-mm.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So they continued to operate without a license while their case was on appeal. Like, why is that a thing?
Yeah.
U.S. immigration officers joined the chorus of complaints early in 1945, citing evidence that Lila Young had smuggled black market babies into the United States. In March, the Youngs were arraigned. I'd like to rearrange her face. They were arraigned on 8 counts, including violation of the Maternity Boarding House Act and practicing medicine without a license. But their conviction on 3 counts on March 27th resulted in a fine of $150.
Shut the fuck up.
No, I can't shut the fuck up because it's true.
I'm so tired of these people.
Don't you hate them?
I do.
Yeah, it is actually.
I just don't know how you get away with it for so long.
It's mind-boggling.
Like back then, you could just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a doctor. Here, let me cut your leg off," and they were like, "Don't do that, please."
I'm telling you, it was the Wild West, especially during the Depression. I mean, people were just trying to survive.
That's true, and there was really no government money to be like regulating stuff.
There just wasn't, and I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay what happened.
Just took advantage.
It's just understandable how things like this just flew under the radar, you know. So the home generated a lot of business in the local area, and the Youngs had support of most of the business community in the town of Chester. Many of these businessmen were supporters of Dr. Frank Royce Davis. Remember him? The guy who told him to get the RN?
Yeah.
They were supporters of his party, which was the Liberal Party. And 1945 was an election year. So the Youngs were like, bitch, we gonna smear you.
Oh.
And that's what they did. So through the fall of 1945, the Youngs, being the moral and upstanding couple that they were, spearheaded this effort to defeat Davis in the election. Organizing and speaking at anti-Davis lectures and placing posters around the county, urging the voters to restore democracy by making Election Day V-Day for victory over Davis and dictatorship.
Oh, because like you're trying to tell us what to do with our business.
Yeah, we don't want you in office anymore because you're basically like a thorn in our side for the past 15 years.
So they just called him a dictator.
Yeah, so they went balls to the wall. They
like
tried to smear his name.
any government regulations is a dictatorship.
Yeah, so they compared him to the fascist dictators of Europe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, basing their claims on the dictatorial powers the legislature had recently granted the director of child welfare. They just didn't like child welfare because, oh my God, why should we take care of kids?
Right.
Why should we make sure that children, even newborn children, especially newborn children, all children are being cared for, God forbid.
And that, they didn't consider that children had any rights at all.
No. So they said, quote, these are the Youngs, since a war has just been fought to end dictatorship in Europe, we can't afford to let it continue here. So away with Davis and the dictatorship. Unquote.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because he was a big fat dictator.
So now he's Hitler.
He's Hitler.
Literally Hitler.
Yeah, Hitler for babies. I mean, come on.
And you're genociding babies.
Genociding. Did you create that word?
I don't know.
I like it.
It's a lot of babies.
No, it is a lot of babies. It really is. So the Youngs, of course, portrayed themselves as the innocent victims of persecution,
of course,
the objects of an unreasonable personal vendetta on the part of Davis and his staff. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys are doing this.
Right.
We're so persecuted.
They're under the guise of like, we're really helping people.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it could really look like you're helping people.
Yeah. And they actually had a lot of American supporters. And they wrote to their American supporters. And let me just tell you what they said. Our campaign against Dr. Davis is going over in a big way. In the 6 lectures already held, so I guess they went and did a bunch of lectures, we have spoken to about 3,000 people. Wow. It is costing us considerable, but we feel that any sacrifice is necessary for these helpless babies.
I mean, that is the same tone and conviction I get with political emails now.
Right? And like, it's all BS.
Look at all these things that we did, but we're going to actually need everybody to donate $10 so we can keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. But they just put themselves out like great advocates. Wow. Like you're helping the helpless babies, the ones that you're starving. Sounds great.
Right.
Sounds great. So Ideal Maternity was finally ordered to shut down in November 1945. They opened in 1929 or 28.
That's a long ass time.
Yeah. On June 5th, 1946, they were convicted of illegally selling babies to 4 American couples and fined a total of $428.90.
I hate these people.
Yes, you should. William, drinking heavily by now.
What? He's Seventh Day.
Just drink.
That's wrong.
Whatever. Get out of here. Was later convicted of perjury based on his testimony at the June trial. But babies were still being born at Ideal Maternity as early as like in 1947. So they were still doing stuff.
That's weird.
Yeah. So the end, when it finally came, was actually the result of Lila's arrogance because, you know, she is so full of herself. I really feel like she's just a megalomaniac. She was
clearly running the show.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because when you see the picture of them, oh my God, look at that. She looks
so creepy.
Freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
And he just like next to her with his little like horn rimmed glass and he's like, okay. I mean, that's how I feel.
Well, yeah. Like it doesn't help that her eyes are deep set, but she looks terrifying. She
looks so evil. And there's just like stories upon stories of just she would terrify people in the home. She was a bully.
Terrible.
To the nth degree. It was awful. But she was super pissed about the media coverage of her case. So she actually filed a $25,000 libel suit against the local newspaper. And that just opened the floodgates of damning testimony against her from all sides.
Oh, because they're like, oh, really? You want to take this to court?
Yeah, you want to do this?
We'll find some people.
Mm-hmm. And we're done with you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. Jurors dismissed her suit, of course, after brief deliberation, and the trial pretty much exposed her operation for what it was.
What an asshole.
Yeah. And there's evidence that many women gave birth to healthy babies while staying there at the home and were later told they died.
Oh, so that they could be adopted.
Yes. So they could have been adopted out without the mother's knowledge. Yeah. The maternity home was not just a place for unwed or widowed mothers to be. Many married women also ended up there as it was considered one of the biggest, most modern maternity facilities in Canada. So they had such a reputation. This is why they were not prosecuted the way they should have been.
Right.
You know, people actually depended on them. In 1940, Violet Eisenhower went to the Ideal Maternity Home to give birth to her baby, a healthy 8-pound baby girl she named Faith Lutanya.
Aww.
Which is the sweetest name I've ever heard.
Lutanya.
Yeah, Faith Lutanya. So Violet was married, and she decided on this maternity home because it was convenient. It was like near her home, and it's not like they had Kaiser on every corner back then. Mm-hmm. So over the next 2 weeks, she stayed in the maternity home recuperating, and she nursed her baby, who seemed perfectly healthy. The night she was due to leave, fucking Lila comes into her room holding a baby that she claimed was Violet's daughter. She stood in the shadows, though, so she couldn't see her, and told her the baby had taken ill, but refused to let her see the baby. In the morning, when Violet's husband and parents arrived to take Violet and the baby home, Mrs. Young told them that the baby had died during the night. So Lila was like, oh, I'm so sorry. The baby died, got sick suddenly got sick.
Wow.
Yeah. The baby was placed in a butter box. The lid was screwed shut, not nailed, apparently, like they usually did, and was buried. So they never actually saw Faith Lutanya's body. None of the family members. Violet gave an interview to the LA Times in 1999 and said that another mother who was there at the time told her that a couple had come into the home in search of a baby girl. Faith Lutanya was the only girl in the nursery at that time. So in December 1997, the Justice Department finally gave approval and the grave was exhumed.
Wow.
They dug a 2-foot trench. Oh my God, this just breaks my heart. I swear, I was like crying when I read this. It was so bad. They dug a 2-foot trench while Violet looked on the entire time. And it took hours. She stood there the entire time. And they were only able to find fragments that were paper thin, like little fragments, stained dark brown by the earth. The biggest piece, about 1 inch round, only remotely resembled a baby's skull. So they couldn't find like a full skeleton or anything. They just found little fragments. They also found shreds of wood from the coffin and a button. But there was insufficient evidence to do any DNA tests to compare them to Violet. They tried. So Violet passed away in 2002 without ever knowing for certain the whereabouts of her daughter. And she believed till the day she died that her daughter was alive.
Oh, I'm sure she was.
And
Her
it
daughter probably had no idea who she even was.
absolutely crushes me
Yeah.
reading that story.
That's terrible.
And I could just imagine her. I mean, she was an old woman by the time they dug up that grave, just standing there watching
Yeah.
and just feeling that grief her whole life. Like, oh my God. Burn in hell, Lila and William.
Yeah, no kidding.
That is just the worst. So one mother who changed her mind in 1946 and went to try to get her child back was told that the boy had already been placed for adoption, but we might be able to retrieve him if you can come up with $10,000. Of course, she couldn't come up with $10,000.
No, that's crazy.
That's nuts.
I don't even know if I could come up with $10,000.
Yes. I mean, and also you think about, yes, there are stories of people going to really good parents and they grew up and had really nice lives. But there was a bunch of babies who they were just like, you walk in and you're like, I want that baby. Okay. Like, you're not investigated. There's no background check on you.
Right.
Like, you could have been a total creep from off the street.
Yeah.
But you have $10,000. You can just walk off with a baby. Like, who knows what those children's lives were like?
Yeah.
You know, or if, God, if forbid, if they even survived. So, it's just horrible stuff like that. A maternity home survivor by the name of Sandy Tuckerton said her adoptive mother chose her because she was the only baby in the ward that day with dark hair, like her own.
Oh.
Yeah. So a pediatrician diagnosed Sandy with pneumonia soon after she was adopted, and the Youngs must have not realized that. Tuckerton said that if she had stayed at the maternity home, she most likely wouldn't have made it because sick babies were not marketable.
No, yeah, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Help.
They probably would have just starved her because
Yeah,
we're not
she
getting you
wouldn't have
medical
gotten
care.
medical care.
Guess what? Medical care costs us money.
Right.
We're not doing that.
So greedy.
It is beyond greedy, and
the millions of dollars they made, like,
millions.
What are you spending it on?
Who knows?
Like, who gives a shit? Why do you need it?
I mean,
You know?
yeah.
I always feel like that about people that do criminal shit because they're greedy.
Yeah.
And they make like millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's like, why? What are you doing with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're
Does it
just
really
trying to
matter?
survive at that point.
No.
You have money for food.
You've paid your bills. You've bought a yacht. You have a Mercedes. Like, it's enough. You know?
No, it's greed.
Yeah.
For sure, it's greed.
It's gross.
And I mean, I read things that said that, it's thought that they possibly started this with good intentions. I don't know.
I mean, I could kind of see that.
Maybe they did.
Or maybe he did.
Maybe.
And she took it another direction.
I don't know.
Because clearly she talked
But, I
him
mean,
into it too.
He was a bad apple too. I mean, he did a lot of bad things. He made them sign those things.
Yeah.
I mean, they really did this together.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can't say, oh, it's just all Lila. I mean, she definitely looks like the scary one in the photo.
She does.
And I really wonder what kind of mother she was. I really wanted to find more information
She
on
still
that.
had kids.
She had 5.
And they must have been involved somehow.
They all grew up. They all did things. They all had lives, So, I mean, it would just be interesting to see if she was a scary mom or if she was a great mom. Who knows?
Maybe.
Another survivor by the name of Riva Barnett Saya said that she was fortunate that her adopted mother was drawn to a wet and sickly baby in the corner of the room. She said that was her. Yeah. A pediatrician in town who examined her urged her mother to get that baby out of there as soon as possible. So her adopted mom took her. And so when I say survivor, I'm talking about these are adults who've grown up and who were babies there. So they call themselves Ideal Maternity Home survivors.
Right.
Because they truly survived.
They
They did. The Young's handyman by the name of Glenn Shatford, that's all I'm going to say, would later admit bearing between 100 and 125 babies in a field owned by Lila's parents. So yeah, it was owned by her near Fox Point. And it was adjoining the Adventist cemetery. So like it was next to the Seventh-day Adventist cemetery. So there was already a cemetery there, and then they used this field. And they told their freaking handyman, like, Shatford, what the hell?
Do you know if they were marked or no?
I don't know.
Or
I
maybe
feel like they were unmarked.
Yeah.
Why would you want why would you want 600? They don't even know how many babies, so they couldn't have been marked. Yeah.
That's terrible.
They were buried in open graves or in butter boxes from the local Le Havre dairy. So we have a picture that I put up of the butter boxes, and it has Le Havre dairy on it. Mm. He said they buried them in rows, so it was easy to see how many there were. I hate it. Shatford recalled that in April of 1938, an unnamed infant lay in the Young's tool shed for 5 days, covered by a box before it was driven to Fox Point for burial. So they just basically discarded them. They meant nothing.
That's terrible.
It is horrific. And he just went along with this. And I don't know much about this guy, but I mean, he just basically went along with it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't know. You couldn't pay me any amount of money, but
no.
To do that.
No. So around this same time in Ireland, there was this place called St. Mary's Mother and Baby Home, which was a church-run institution in Galway County. It took in unmarried mothers and their babies that were banished from Irish society and had nowhere else to go. So this was a pervasive problem throughout the world.
Right. The puritanical thing.
These women and children were kept in miserable conditions from 1925 until 1961 when the home finally closed. That's years. Today, this site lies at the center of an unfolding scandal in Ireland over the Roman Catholic Church's treatment of unwed mothers and their babies in their care.
That makes sense.
Yep.
That checks out.
But men are never punished. Have you ever noticed there's no men in here that get punished for doing anything out of wedlock?
No.
It just burns my soul.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
because there's no, the evidence doesn't follow them.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no mark.
There's no mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nuns with the Sisters of Bon Secours ran the home and allegedly treated children so badly that many died from disease, neglect, and malnutrition. Investigators believe about 800 children were buried on the home's grounds without a proper burial, and that most of their bodies were put into an underground chamber that was part of a sewage system.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
A courthouse news article I read said that the inhumane treatment of children and the burying of children inside the cesspit was revealed in 2014 by a woman named Catherine Corliss, who was an amateur historian from the town of Tuam in County Galway. She actually found death certificates for 796 children who died in the home, but there was no official burial places listed for them. So this is how this kind of started coming out into light. It was apparently an open secret in the town, which that's the same. It's the same as the Ideal Maternity Home.
It's like everybody knows and they just don't say anything.
Yeah, it was an open secret that conditions at the children's home were horrible. The home's children walked barefoot to school. Now think about Ireland is freaking cold.
Yeah.
Okay? Even when it's not cold, I feel like it's cold. They walked barefoot to school and were not allowed to play with any of the other children that did not come from the home. No one in town was allowed to speak with any of the children from the home, and they could even be physically punished if they attempted to do so. Adults. There's a story about an adult trying to talk to one of the children and they got slapped. I don't know who slapped them, but that's nuts.
I'm sorry.
So people felt like they could not question the authority of the church, because that's basically what it was. It was church's authority.
That's kind of the problem with a lot of things.
It is.
You can't question the authority of the church.
Yeah.
And you've never been allowed to. So.
No, I mean, that's why Henry VIII had to rally against the Pope. I mean, the Pope still had more say than the king at one point. I mean, it's crazy. It's a horribly sad case. And there were most likely scores of homes like this across the U.S. and all over the world.
Well, that makes sense.
So, I mean, that's just a little highlight of something else. But that was during the same time period. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a whole other podcast too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just sounds terrible what was happening there. So child welfare authorities in Canada and America were so concerned with what the Youngs had done, they did develop new laws to protect adopted children, and it helped to jumpstart short-term and long-term social policies.
Good.
So that's good.
So those kids have some advocacy somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the heart of this story, though, is the exploitation of women and the total lack of options provided for unwed and impoverished mothers.
Agreed.
And I mean, there are some places today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you are a poor mother or a poor woman who has become pregnant, your options can be very low.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the options that they do have are trying to be taken away. So to me, the story is relevant. Even now, I think it's very relevant.
I agree.
And
Well, and I mean, it wasn't that long ago at all.
it really wasn't. It seems like it
very
was
close to now.
Yeah, it seems like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't.
No,
It's crazy.
people forget.
Yeah. So the Ideal Maternity Home was scheduled for conversion into a resort hotel, but burned to the ground on September 23rd, 1962. Good riddance.
Haunted?
I don't know. Do things can remain haunted when they burn to the ground? There's nothing left to
I would
haunt.
just think that that's why.
Oh, maybe the ghost did it? They burned
Or like,
it. I don't know how it
I don't
burned.
know. They wanted the insurance money because they couldn't get anybody to stay there because it was haunted.
Maybe.
I don't know.
People like staying in haunted things, though.
I guess.
Yeah. So William died of cancer just before Christmas in 1962. And Lila died of leukemia in 1967. And her tombstone has the epitaph, "Till we meet again. No thanks."
Yeah, no.
So I don't know. Maybe her children put that on there. I don't know. But
Maybe.
that's what her tombstone says. There is a website called idealhomesurvivors.com that was created by and dedicated to the survivors of the Ideal Maternity Home. And it's their goal to connect with each other across the globe as they search for answers to their past.
Oh, that's cool.
So it actually it's
Provide some closure.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. It has an entire page dedicated to missing survivors, and little stories and tidbits. And so if you feel like you're searching for someone or you came from this place, you can look on that page and connect with people. In the media, there's a book called Butterbox Survivors: Life After the Ideal Maternity Home, by Bob Hartland, that talks about 36 adult adoptees who survived the Ideal Maternity Home. And the author is also a survivor of the maternity home.
Oh.
And there's a book by journalist Betty Cahill called The Butterbox Babies: Baby Sales, Baby Deaths, and the Scandalous Story of the Ideal Maternity Home. And there's also a movie called The Child Remains. And I guess it's a horror movie. I did not watch it. I don't like horror movies. I like scary stuff, but not horror.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't like horror, do you?
It depends.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't watch it alone, and I know nobody would watch it with me. So,
Yeah, I get spooked.
but if you want to watch that, it's
you wanna be
loosely
spooked.
based on this story. It's called The Child Remains.
Mm.
Yeah. So that is the story of the Butterbox Babies. It's a sad one.
A lot of detail.
Yeah. Was that a lot?
No, it was good.
Yeah.
Because like when I was looking, like just doing my preliminary thing, I didn't find any like people, like specific.
Girl, I do the deep dive.
I know you're into
I like
it.
to dive and then dive some more, and then I keep diving, and then I'm like, oh, what's this over here? And then I go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a tragic story,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about the ripples that it has affected to this day. You know, people who are still trying to find their people, their family.
Yeah. And I wonder if they're like still underground. I mean, I don't know, probably not in our country, but
You
That
mean
kinda-
like black market babies?
that kind of stuff's still going on. Oh, I'm sure there's still black market babies.
Oh, there has to be.
But as far as like, posing as a helpful place and actually being horrific.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Even places that are licensed.
Oh,
Dark,
yeah, that's
horrible things happen there.
That's true.
Because it's easy. Like, oh, they're coming. They showed up to do an inspection, but it looks good. But is anyone showing up for an inspection at 2 a.m.?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no one's doing that. So
There's no social workers here in the middle of the night.
no.
Yeah.
So I mean, if someone's going to come for an inspection, it's going to be between 8 and 5, most likely.
Or do they get notice? I don't know.
Not always.
Yeah.
Not always. So they'll do like an unannounced visit, in certain places.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh no, terrible things happen. That's why we have ombudsmen and other places that people can call.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
I'm fully supportive of my tax money going to stuff like that.
But your drink is delicious.
It's probably, yours is probably cold now.
I know, but I'm going to drink
stuck
it now
mine
because
down.
I'm so busy talking.
I know. I could pop it in the microwave.
That's true. You could.
Oh, actually, it has alcohol in it. It might light on fire.
Oh, God. Let's not do that. I can just mix it around with my little cinnamon stick.
I'm really glad I got these cups. I love them.
Describe them.
They're double-walled glass mugs. I got them at World Market. And so the mug doesn't heat up, but you can still see the beautifulness of the drink.
You're right. You know, I didn't even notice these were double walled, but they are. So you can hold on to it without getting your hand dying hot. That's what I'm trying to say.
And they had a lot of different shapes too. They had like the bowl shaped like latte mugs.
Oh, World Market's the best.
Yeah. They don't always have everything I want, but
they have a lot of things I want.
Yeah.
They're so good.
They've helped a lot with my obscure things I need for cocktails. Like, you know.
Yeah, you say I dive, you dive.
Maple syrup in a maple leaf bottle.
Yeah, and we'll post pictures of this beautiful drink too. Yeah. I highly suggest making it over the holidays.
Me too. Don't make it with the double rum though. Make it with amaretto.
Or make it with the double rum.
Yeah, the double rum just makes it really hot. Like you get that hot alcohol on your
and sometimes
palate.
it's too much.
It just isn't. This is like festive and tasty.
Yes.
You're not like trying to get effed up.
We're not.
Yeah, you know, it's still early afternoon.
True.
Yeah.
No, this is really good.
Thanks.
I'm kind of thinking it would be fun to make like a hot chocolate version or something.
Oh yeah.
You could do that.
With butter.
Oh yeah, with butter. Like the butter, what is that coffee called that people do?
Bulletproof coffee.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
So this is your bulletproof. Oh, just hit the microphone. This is your bulletproof
Butterbox rum.
Yeah, whatever it's called. So, we have one Patreon. We gotta shout her out.
We finally got a Patreon.
Yeah, so excited. Is it Patreon or Patreon?
I think it's Patreon.
Oh, I think I'm trying to be bougie and call it
Patreon.
Patreon.
Okay. You can.
Okay, I'll call it Patreon. So yeah, we have a one Patreon. We're really excited you're here. You want to do the honors?
What honors?
Oh, I'll say your name.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Tracy M.
Thanks, Tracy.
Woo-hoo. Tracy, we're so happy that you're here.
And we'll, because, you know, we're new podcasters. I'll figure out how to get you that behind the scenes footage. Your sticker's on the way.
Yeah.
With a handwritten note from me and Tracy.
Yeah, when you sign up for our Patreon, you're going to get some behind the scenes
Yeah.
footage. You're going to get, we're going to have some episodes up there just for our Patreon members, which is going to be really fun. You also, of course, get a shout out and lots of other goodies that we're working on.
I'm also considering doing like a YouTube style video that's private on actually making the drinks that we make for the show right before the show.
No, I actually think that would be great because hearing the recipe is one thing, but watching you make it is really fun.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys get to see the finished product in the pictures, but
it's not the same,
it's not the same. You don't get to see the sinking whipped cream.
Yeah, I mean, that's like watching the Pioneer Woman just like show you a picture. I want to watch her make it.
Yeah.
My girl crush.
So that's going to be part of the Patreon exclusives too.
That's going to be awesome.
Behind the scenes, special episodes, maybe like mini episodes.
Yeah. No, I actually have a lot of ideas for mini episodes.
We have so many ideas, guys.
I do. Sometimes I just drown in my ideas.
I know. I feel like I'm in a really creative space right now.
You are.
It's weird.
I love it.
I don't know if it's like the season change puts me in the
Maybe.
mood to like make things.
Yeah.
Or what, but
I'm just excited because I feel like in the beginning of all this COVID business, we were both just kind of frozen.
Yeah.
And now you've just burst forth.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like I've just been so just like bored.
That
I don't
sigh
know.
just encompassed so
It
much.
says a lot.
It really did.
Well, because I always had like a thing. I always have a thing. Either like I'm painting or I'm like I have some kind of side business going or I don't know. Back like years ago, I was driving for Uber and Lyft on the weekend. Like I always have a thing that I'm doing. And for the longest time, I've had no thing.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, we bought the house, but.
Well, and sometimes it's okay not to have a thing and just rest and kind of regroup yourself.
But I'm like, how many YouTube videos can I watch, you know?
I could watch a lot.
Like, how long am I going to sit on the couch?
True, but sometimes you do need that without feeling guilty. But
Yeah.
you've got your fire back.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see it.
Cool, thanks.
Why don't you tell people where to find us?
Oh, you can find us on Twitter at Killer Spirits, on Instagram at Killer Spirits Pod. Where else? You can find us on Spotify, iTunes.
Yeah,
We're now a listen on iTunes.
Go leave us a review.
Yeah, rate and review us.
Please.
Where else? Patreon.com/Killer Spirits Pod.
But only if it's a good review.
Yeah, don't leave us a shit review.
I don't want it.
We'll just delete it.
You can't delete them.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Oh. Well, don't tell us we're annoying or anything, because that would make me sad.
I already know I'm annoying, though, so it's fine.
Yeah, but I don't need to be reminded.
But I already know, so you don't need to tell me.
Yeah, if you don't like the show, just don't listen to it. Don't write anything about us.
Oh, man. I'm sure there'll be bad ones. It's just life.
Way. That's true.
It's like, why does YouTube even have a thumbs down option? Have you ever thought about that? Why, if you don't like it, just keep scrolling. Why
Just
do
go
you?
to the next thing?
Yeah, but why do they even have the thumbs down?
I don't know.
Come on, YouTube. I don't like it.
But I also feel like I've listened to other true crime podcasts that are way more annoying than ours.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll be listening, like, I'll get like 5 minutes in and be like, I can't do it.
Well,
I really can't listen to these people talk.
maybe there's people who think that about us.
Probably.
It's okay.
We
forgive you, but just don't leave us a bad review. That's all. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. 5 stars only.
All right. Thank you guys so much
Thanks,
for
guys.
listening.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.